If your baby seems hungry all evening, but feeding makes things worse, arching of the back, spit up, waking 20 minutes after falling asleep, you might not be looking at hunger. You're looking at arousal masked as hunger. And the more you feed into it, the more you can destabilize the system. In this video, I'm going to show you how to tell the difference in under 60 seconds, so you stop feeding the problem. And then I'll give you the order of operations for what to do tonight. Here's the misinterpretation. Evening distress and rooting means the baby needs more milk. Here's what's actually true. Hunger cues overlap with stress cues. Rooting, hand sucking, frantic searching, those can all be hunger. Or they can be a baby trying to regulate a nervous system that's climbing too high. Here's the 60-second hunger test. 3 questions. When did they last eat? If it's been less than about 90 minutes since a full feed, you're not usually looking at pure fuel demand. If it's been 2.5, 3+ hours and the baby is alert between feeds, hunger rises on the list. Number 2, how do they feed? Real hunger looks organized, smooth latch, and then rhythmic. Suck, swallow, breathe. The body softens. Arousal-driven feeding looks messy. Latch, pull off, frantic sucking, arching the back, shallow gulping, crying breaks through the feed. And 3, what happens after? Real hunger ends in calm, quiet alertness or sleep, or a burp. Arousal-driven feeding often ends in more crying, more spit up, more wake-ups, shorter sleep. If feeding makes things worse, you're probably feeding state, not hunger. State first, then feeding. There are 2 types of hunger. Type 1 is real hunger. This is real fuel demand. Baby hasn't eaten in a while. They're reasonably alert between feeds. Feeding organizes them. It calms them. You can literally hear it. Rhythmic sucking, steady swallows, coordinated breathing. Then they release and soften. You might call it milk drunk. Type 2 is false hunger or arousal-driven hunger. It looks like hunger, but it's not primarily fuel demand. Baby may have eaten 30, 60 minutes ago, and their feeding is frantic. They latch, they pop off, they arch, they latch again. They take volume but don't settle. The crying returns a few minutes later if it does stop, and if they sleep, it's fragmented. Here's the thing. Sucking is regulating. So a dysregulated baby will reach for sucking the way adults reach for their own type of coping tool. But feeding for fuel is not the same as sucking for regulation, and that's why it can backfire. Let's look at the mechanism. Feeding and digestion work best in a downshifted state, parasympathetic, rest and digest. When a baby is in high arousal, crying hard, rigid body, frantic breathing, you're in sympathetic mode, alert, tense, mobilized. In that state, coordination gets messy. Suck, swallow, breathe breaks down. Babies tend to swallow more air. More volume can mean more distension and discomfort. They can spit up more, and discomfort makes them even more highly aroused. So you get into a loop where the baby's crying, you feed them to calm them, they get even worse because their feeding is disorganized, and on you go. It's not a problem with your milk. It's physiology and timing. You might notice that this often happens in the evening. Some people think that they have a low supply in the evening or something's going on with their milk. Evenings are actually a predictable time for infants' arousal to rise. Babies are accumulating stimulation all day long. Sleep pressure builds, the nervous system is tired, and it's still immature. So you might get the advice to cluster feed. And sometimes that's right. But here's the differentiator. Cluster feeding that's working still looks organized. If feeding is frantic, doesn't settle the baby, and sleep gets worse, it's not helpful to keep stacking milk on top of your dysregulated baby. So here's what you do instead. Pause the feeding. You're not withholding, you're not starving them. You're changing the input. You're stopping the feed-soothe spiral. Use regulation tools first. Dim the lights. Less handling. Mimic the womb. Hold them snugly. Put them in a carrier. Move rhythmically. And put on some steady white noise that will mimic the familiar sounds they heard when they were growing inside of you. A pacifier or a clean finger can also activate the calming sucking pattern without immediately adding milk. And watch for the shift. Tone softening, breath slowing, and the body melting. If enough time has passed and hunger cues are clear, offer the calm, coordinated feed. That's the order. Calm the state, then feed. False hunger looks like hunger because your baby longs for the regulation sucking can provide. But when you feed into high arousal, you can work against the physiology. The coordination breaks down, air and discomfort rise, and sleep fragments. So the move is simple. Downshift the nervous system. Then feed if the system can handle it. That's the difference between feeding the baby and feeding the problem.